It waits, and we are left to wonder what lies beyond it. And more unsettling still, who decided we should not know? To understand this suspicion, we must first understand the system. In theory, archaeological discovery operates within a framework of transparency and rigor. A team excavates under permit issued by a national ministry or antiquities authority. Finds are documented in field notes, photographed, cataloged. Soil samples are analyzed. Carbon dating is commissioned. Pottery shards are cross-referenced with regional typologies. Everything is recorded in triplicate. When something significant emerges, a tomb, an inscription, a sealed jar, the process accelerates. Senior researchers are consulted. International specialists are invited to peer review the findings. Universities publish preliminary reports. Museums negotiate loans. UNESCO may become involved if the site holds global importance. Press conferences are scheduled. The discovery enters public discourse. This is how it is meant to work. And in countless cases, it does. The tomb of Tutankhamun, excavated over months by Howard Carter, became one of the most documented finds in history. The Dead Sea Scrolls, though initially controlled by a small group, were eventually published and debated worldwide. Göbekli Tepe, once revealed, forced a rewriting of Neolithic timelines and was celebrated for doing so. The academic world, for all its flaws, is built on the principle that knowledge advances through scrutiny. Peer review is imperfect but persistent. Rival institutions challenge each other's conclusions. Independent researchers replicate results. Conferences provide forums for dissent. Open access journals democratize information. The system is slow, bureaucratic, sometimes maddeningly territorial, but it is not, by design, secretive. Governments, too, have incentives to announce discoveries. Tourism thrives on ancient wonders. National pride is bolstered by heritage. International prestige follows UNESCO World Heritage designations. Egypt promotes the pyramids. Greece celebrates the Parthenon. Peru builds infrastructure around Machu Picchu. There is money, influence, and identity to be gained from openness. And yet, despite this framework, despite these incentives, there are moments when the expected announcements do not come, when excavations are suddenly restricted, when sites are closed without explanation, when promising research is quietly shelved, and inquiries meet only vague bureaucratic responses. These moments are rare, perhaps explainable, but they are enough to seed doubt, enough to make us ask, if the system is designed for transparency, why do some doors remain closed? History shocked again. The Great Sphinx of Giza stands as it has for millennia, gazing eastward across the desert, weathered by wind, by sand, by time itself. Egyptologists date its construction to the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, around 2500 BCE, a monument carved during the 4th dynasty, a triumph of Old Kingdom engineering. But the stone tells a different story. In the early 1990s, geologist Robert Schoch examined the Sphinx's enclosure and noted deep vertical erosion patterns inconsistent with wind abrasion. The weathering, he argued, resembled water erosion, the kind caused by sustained rainfall. Yet Egypt's climate has been arid for thousands of years. The last period of significant rainfall in the region ended around 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, at the close of the African humid period. If Schoch's analysis is correct, the Sphinx could predate the pyramids by thousands of years. It would mean the monument was carved not by a Bronze Age civilization, but by a people lost to conventional history, a society erased by the very climate shift that shaped the desert we see today. Mainstream Egyptology rejects this. The counter-arguments are methodical. The erosion could be caused by groundwater seepage, by localized flooding, by moisture wicking through porous limestone. The Sphinx's stylistic features align with 4th dynasty art. No artifacts predating the Old Kingdom have been found in the immediate vicinity. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and geological speculation alone is insufficient. The debate has persisted for decades, unresolved and often acrimonious. It is not a fringe theory dismissed without consideration. Schoch holds a PhD from Yale and has published peer-reviewed work, nor is it accepted as consensus. It exists in the uncomfortable space between credible inquiry and academic heresy. But here is the deeper question. If new evidence emerged that definitively supported an older date, if carbon dating of organic material sealed within the Sphinx's bedrock returned results of 10,000 BCE, if archaeological techniques improved enough to confirm pre-dynastic origins, would institutions embrace the revision? Or would resistance emerge, not from malice, but from inertia? From the weight of textbooks already written, tourism industries already built, national identities already anchored in the glory of the pharaohs? From the simple human reluctance to rewrite a story we have told ourselves for so long? The Sphinx endures, silent and patient. It does not care what we call it, or when we believe it was born. But we care, and that care, that need to fix history into place, may be the very thing that prevents us from seeing it clearly. History is not merely academic, it is identity. For modern nations, the past is a foundation upon which legitimacy, pride, and cohesion are built. Egypt is the land of the pharaohs. Greece is the birthplace of democracy. China traces unbroken civilization back 5 millennia. These are not just historical facts, they are pillars of national identity, woven into education systems, celebrated in monuments, enshrined in constitutions. To alter the timeline of these civilizations is not simply to correct an error. It is to destabilize a narrative that millions of people have internalized as truth. It is to challenge the stories that school children learn, that tourists come to see, that governments use to unify disparate populations under a shared heritage. Consider the economic implications. Egypt's tourism industry generates billions annually, much of it driven by visitors seeking connection to the ancient world. The pyramids are dated, branded, packaged into a coherent story. The 4th dynasty, the Old Kingdom, the age of the great builders. If that story were revised, if new evidence suggested an older, unknown civilization predated the pharaohs, what would happen to the infrastructure built around the current narrative? Textbooks would need revision. Museum exhibits would require restructuring. Tour guides would need retraining. International partnerships, built on shared understanding of chronology, would face renegotiation. The disruption would be immense, not because the new information is false, but because the systems built on the old information are vast and entrenched. And then there is the matter of legitimacy. Governments often claim continuity with ancient civilizations to justify territorial boundaries, cultural policies, or political authority. If the origins of a civilization are pushed back beyond recorded history, into a time before modern ethnic or national identities existed, that continuity becomes harder to claim. The past becomes less a tool for the present, and more an unsettling reminder of how little we truly know. None of this requires a conspiracy. It requires only the predictable human response to inconvenience. Information that complicates carefully constructed narratives is not necessarily suppressed, but it may be delayed, downplayed, or simply not prioritized for funding and research. The stones do not care about politics, but the people who interpret them do. And in that intersection of stone and policy, mystery finds fertile ground to grow. In 1994, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began excavating a site in southeastern Turkey that would shatter assumptions about the origins of civilization. Göbekli Tepe, Potbelly Hill, did not look like much from the surface, just low mounds on a barren plateau. But beneath the soil lay massive stone pillars, arranged in circles, carved with intricate reliefs of animals, foxes, lions, scorpions, vultures. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. The scale was monumental, and the date was impossible. Carbon dating of organic material placed construction around 9,600 BCE, over 11,000 years ago. That predated the invention of agriculture. It predated pottery, metalworking, and permanent settlements. According to the prevailing model of human development, complex monumental architecture should not have existed yet. Hunter-gatherers did not build temples. They moved seasonally, followed game, lived in temporary shelters. Yet here was evidence that they had. Societies without farming, cities, or writing organized labor on a massive scale, carving stone with purpose and artistry. Göbekli Tepe forced a revision. It suggested that ritual and religion might have preceded agriculture, not followed it. The drive to gather and build might have spurred humans to settle, cultivate crops, and stay in one place to support sacred sites. The academic community did not suppress this discovery. It was published, debated, celebrated. UNESCO designated Göbekli Tepe a World Heritage Site. Textbooks were updated. The narrative shifted. But the shock of the discovery raises a deeper question. If one site could rewrite prehistory, how many others remain unexcavated? How many mounds, dismissed as natural hills, might conceal structures older than recorded history? How many cultures, entire ways of life, have been erased not by conquest, but by time and forgetfulness? And perhaps more unsettling, if Göbekli Tepe was found in a politically unstable region, or beneath a military installation, or where excavation was difficult, would it have been revealed? Or would it have remained classified, restricted, known only to a handful of officials who decided the world was not ready to know? We celebrate the discoveries that are announced, but we cannot count the ones that were not. The stones of Göbekli Tepe now stand in sunlight, open to scholars and visitors alike. Somewhere else, perhaps, other stones remain buried, not lost, but waiting for permission to be found. Not all archaeological sites can be excavated freely. Some lie in places where shovels cannot reach, not because of depth or difficulty, but because of politics, security, or territorial dispute. Consider the deserts of the Middle East, vast and ancient, scattered with tells and ruins that predate Islam, Christianity, even Bronze Age empires. Many of these sites sit within military zones restricted by national defense concerns. Satellite imagery may reveal anomalies, geometric patterns, shadows suggesting structures beneath the sand, but ground access is forbidden. Researchers apply for permits and receive vague refusals. The reasoning is often legitimate. Unexploded ordnance, border security, ongoing military operations. But the effect is the same: silence. In the Taklamakan Desert of western China, Ancient cities of the Silk Road lie buried beneath dunes. Some have been excavated, their mummies and manuscripts revealing cultures that blended east and west millennia ago. But other sites remain off-limits, situated in politically sensitive regions where ethnic tensions and state security take precedence over archaeology. Researchers who inquire too persistently find their visa applications delayed indefinitely. Antarctica presents a different kind of restriction. The continent is governed by international treaty, its interior largely unexplored. Geologists have identified rock formations and ice-free valleys that predate the current glaciation. If human activity ever occurred there during warmer periods, a speculative possibility, but not impossible given the climate cycles of the distant past. Evidence would be buried beneath miles of ice or locked within military research stations where access is tightly controlled. Even in more accessible regions, political instability creates archaeological dead zones. Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, nations rich in ancient history, now fractured by conflict. Sites that once welcomed international teams are now too dangerous to approach. ICE has deliberately destroyed Palmyra and Nimrod, but how many other sites were simply abandoned, looted, or quietly surveyed by forces with no obligation to publish findings? None of this proves a coordinated cover-up. War disrupts everything, including science. Security concerns are real. Governments prioritize stability over excavation, and that is not inherently sinister, but it creates gaps. Blind spots in the archaeological record, where discovery is possible, but access is not. And in those gaps, suspicion grows. Because when a door is locked, human nature assumes there is something behind it worth hiding, whether that assumption is justified or not. The question is not whether every restricted site conceals a world-changing revelation. It is whether some do, and whether we would ever be told if they did. Not all Worse never die. Silence, even justified silence, breeds imagination. And imagination, once seated, is nearly impossible to uproot. 20,000 years ago, scene could have been catastrophically destroyed. Their achievements erased by fire, flood, and ice. The hypothesis remains contested. Critics argue that the evidence is ambiguous. Ignored. Scattered across the archaeological record are objects that provoke uncomfortable questions. In the Temple of Seti I at Abydos, Egypt, hieroglyphs appear to depict helicopters, submarines, and futuristic aircraft. Egyptologists explain this as a palimpsest, an older inscription partially erased and overwritten, creating the visual illusion. The explanation is rational, supported by analysis. Yet, the image persists in popular imagination as evidence of anachronistic knowledge. At Puma Punku in Bolivia, massive stone blocks fit together with precision measured in fractions of a millimeter. The surfaces are flat to a degree that suggests advanced tools. Yet conventional archaeology dates the site to 500 to 600 CE, a period when the Tiwanaku culture supposedly lacked metal tools capable of such work. Theories range from plausible sophisticated stone grinding techniques to the speculative. Lost technology, forgotten methods, knowledge deliberately erased. The Antikythera mechanism, recovered from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece, is an ancient analog computer, used to predict astronomical positions and eclipses. Dated to 100 BCE, its complexity was unmatched until mechanical clocks over a millennium later. For decades, historians assumed it was an anomaly, a one-off invention by a genius whose knowledge died with him. But recent scholarship suggests it may have been part of a broader tradition of sophisticated engineering that simply didn't survive. These examples are not evidence of ancient aliens or time travelers. They are evidence of something more humbling, that the past was more capable than we often assume. Cultures we dismiss as primitive possessed knowledge and skills that we struggle to replicate even today. The linear narrative of progress is a modern invention, not historical reality. But they also highlight how uncomfortable anomalies are managed. The Abydos hieroglyphs are explained and dismissed. Puma Punku's precision is acknowledged but attributed to lost conventional techniques. The Antikythera mechanism is celebrated as an exception, not integrated into a broader understanding of ancient technological sophistication. Why? Because to integrate them would require rewriting assumptions. It would mean acknowledging that entire bodies of knowledge have been lost, that civilizations rose and fell leaving only fragments, that what we call progress is not a straight line, but a jagged, discontinuous path interrupted by collapse, forgetting, and catastrophe. Perhaps there is no cover-up. Perhaps we are simply more comfortable with mysteries that remain marginal, curiosities that do not threaten the coherence of the larger story we tell ourselves about the past. Or perhaps Anomalies that challenge too much are set aside, not destroyed, but archived, studied quietly, kept out of textbooks and museums until a time when the narrative is ready to accommodate them. The objects endure, precise and patient. They do not argue their significance. They simply wait for us to ask better questions. We live in an era of unprecedented access to information, and yet governments routinely classify documents for decades. In the United States, presidential records are sealed for years. Intelligence files remain classified for generations. The full details of events from the Cold War are still redacted in official archives. The justification is national security. Some information, if revealed prematurely, could endanger lives, compromise intelligence methods, or destabilize diplomatic relations. This logic is not inherently unreasonable. Secrets exist for reasons. But the existence of classification systems proves that modern states decide what the public may know. If governments classify contemporary information, why would ancient information be exempt? Imagine a scenario. A military excavation in a restricted zone uncovers a site of immense archaeological significance. The discovery is reported up the chain of command. Officials recognize its importance, but also the complications. The site is in a sensitive border region. Publicizing it could inflame territorial disputes. Or perhaps the findings challenge a historical narrative that supports current geopolitical claims. The decision is made to restrict access. Not forever, necessarily, just until a more opportune time. The site is documented, samples are taken, and the information is classified under a national security provision. A handful of researchers are briefed under non-disclosure agreements. The rest of the world never hears about it. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a plausible application of existing legal frameworks. Classification authority, once established for military or diplomatic purposes, can be extended to archaeological finds. If those finds are deemed to intersect with national interests. Does this happen? We cannot know. By definition, classified information is invisible to public scrutiny. We can only observe the pattern. That governments control information selectively, that legal mechanisms exist to restrict knowledge, and that archaeological discoveries have political, economic, and cultural implications that might justify classification. The digital age has made some information harder to suppress. Satellite imagery is commercially available. Whistleblowers can leak documents globally, but it has also made targeted suppression easier. A restricted excavation in a remote location, documented only in classified files, leaves no digital footprint for independent researchers. We trust institutions to be transparent, but transparency is a choice, not a default. And when that choice is made behind closed doors, we are left with the uncomfortable awareness that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Somewhere, perhaps, in a server room or a filing cabinet, under a classification code, lies information about the past. Information that we are not yet permitted to know, or perhaps not. The point is, we cannot tell the difference. The earth does not forget, but it transforms. 10,000 years ago, the Sahara was green. Rivers flowed where dunes now stretch endlessly. Lakes dotted the landscape, teeming with fish. Hippos wallowed in marshes. Giraffes grazed under acacia trees. And humans lived there, not as nomads, but as settled communities, leaving behind rock art that depicts a world unrecognizable to anyone who visits the desert today. This was the African humid period, a climate phase that lasted thousands of years before shifting abruptly around 5,000 years ago. As monsoon patterns changed, the rain ceased. Lakes evaporated, rivers dried. The green Sahara became the arid wasteland it is now, and the societies that depended on its fertility either migrated or vanished. We know this happened because the geological and archaeological records confirm it. But how many cultures, how many achievements were erased in that transition? If a city had stood in what is now the Central Sahara, would we ever find it? Buried beneath sand dunes hundreds of feet deep, undetectable by surface surveys, accessible only by chance or by technology we have not yet deployed. The same story repeats globally. The North Sea was once dry land, a region called Doggerland, connecting Britain to continental Europe. Stone Age peoples lived there, hunted there, built settlements there. Then the ice melted. Sea levels rose. Doggerland drowned, and its inhabitants were forgotten. Only in recent decades have trawlers dredged up stone tools and fossilized bones. Fragmentary hints of a lost world. The Amazon rainforest, long assumed to be pristine wilderness, is now understood to have been shaped by human activity. Earthworks, causeways, and terra preta, enriched soil created by ancient agricultural practices, suggest large, organized societies thrived there. Before European contact, then disease, collapse, and the regrowth of jungle erased the visible evidence. What appeared to be untouched nature was, in fact, a landscape in recovery from catastrophe. Climate cycles do not merely shape history, they erase it. Glaciation scours continents clean. Desertification buries the past beneath sand. Rising seas drown coastlines. Forests reclaim abandoned cities. The earth itself becomes an agent of forgetting, not through intention, but through the relentless processes of wind, water, ice, and time. Perhaps there is no conspiracy at all. Perhaps the true cover-up is geological, not political. Perhaps the reason we do not find evidence of earlier civilizations is not because governments hide it, but because nature has obliterated it so thoroughly that only the hardest, most enduring materials have any chance of survival. And if that is true, then the absence of evidence is not proof of absence. It is simply proof that time, given long enough, erases everything. The sands shift, the seas rise, the forests grow. And beneath it all, patient and indifferent, the earth keeps its secrets. Not because it chooses to, but because that is what the earth does. Humans academic paradigms. They will outlast us. But we care. We are driven by the need to know, to understand, to connect the present to the past and the past to ourselves.